Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 16 millimeter film crew. I'm Cindy.
And I'm Dale.
You can watch us on YouTube and like and comment on our YouTube videos and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can listen to us everywhere podcasts are found at 16 millimeter film crew podcast and visit us on our website at www.16millimeterfilmcrew.com. This week we watched Thunderbolts with an asterisk, aka The New Avengers, directed by Jake Schreier. Ensnared in a death trap, an unconventional team of anti-heroes, Yelena Belova, Bucky Barnes, Red Guardian, Ghost Taskmaster, and John Walker, embarks on a dangerous mission that forces them to confront the darkest corners of their past. So this movie stars Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, Wyatt Russell, Ogla Kurylenko, Louis Pullman, Geraldine Viswa. Hold on, I'm gonna get it right. Nathan, maybe. Chris Bauer, Wendell Pierce, David Harbour, Hannah John Kamen, and Louis Dreyfus. Julia Louis Dreyfus. God, I love that everyone has like three last names. Like that's so fun. Anyways, so tell us what you thought about this movie.
Um, this movie, I don't think it was actually necessary, to be honest,
Okay.
because the only real payoff is the end credit scene. Um, I do think it is a good exploration in loss, grief, and depression. I like the use of them taking these characters and then using that to tell a separate story. Like, for all purposes, this movie is really Yelena's story, aka the
Mm-hmm.
Black Widow 2, that we see following through from the end of the Hawkeye series, where she's still, dealing with the loss of, Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow from Avengers Endgame and the subsequent grief and like that. And the use of, I guess, the Sentry, who is a fairly newly created hero. If I remember correctly, he debuted in the in 2000s, if I remember correctly. So he's a fairly new character in as far as Marvel comics are concerned, along with Miles Morales, who's the Black Spider-Man. And to use his duality as his powers of the Void and the Sentry, the Sentry being the good guy, the Void being almost a supervillain in a way, and using that to explore, depression and grief, and then analyzing that through the lens of, having abusive parents, and then his issues with drug addiction, finding hope and light, and finding, this movie being an analogy for creating a found family, much like the first Avengers movie was, where they kind of became a family, still not as close, but they realized even though we're all strong, we still kind of still need each other in a way. This movie kind of mimics that, but instead of waiting two movies or basically through the whole end of the series to actually them operate as a family, the friction and the camaraderie, we get that from the jump in just one movie instead of having to wait 3 or 4 movies to see that element come to fruition, which I think is a good step up in preparation for Fantastic Four, which is advertised as Marvel's first family, an actual family. So you see the depiction of them showcasing family dynamics improve with these subsequent teams, So yeah.
Yeah, I when I left the theater watching this, I definitely felt like we had like regained some of the things that we were missing from these later phases, the post Avengers Infinity Wars situation. Like it felt like we're like grounded a bit, like we're back to like what made these movies good in the first place, which is just like people working together and like trying to like help each other out and help other people.
Yeah.
Like I think we kind of went off course with like the multiverse stuff. And I think that this was such a good, and I think Jake, who's the director, and the writers, and I know they're from Beef, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Um, it was very intentional, like not to make this movie something that you couldn't watch like in a vacuum, or it's like no, sorry, a movie that you could watch in a vacuum, where like you didn't have to watch any of the previous stuff to understand like what was going on. Like maybe you need to watch like a little bit of what the
Hawkeye and a Falcon and Winter Soldier, and probably
yeah, like
that's it.
maybe, but not even like because I didn't watch any of those
Yeah.
things, and I still like pretty much had an idea about what was going on and who these people were, even though I didn't watch those shows. But I really appreciated that because it's like now you could just come in and sit down and just like watch people who don't like really have superpowers. They're just like, except for Sentry, but who are just like kind of your running gun like you would if you like used to watch the Marvel shows on Netflix, like it's sort of like that, where it's just like people fighting crime in their neighborhoods. Like it kind of was giving that. But I really liked that. And I really like specifically that they focused on Florence's character of Yelena. I thought that that was really cool. One, because like I didn't really think much of her when I watched Black Widow, the movie. But what a lot of people have been saying, which I also agree with, is that she is a much more compelling person to watch on screen in this
Hmm.
character than Miss Scarlett Johansson. Like, no
Yeah.
offense to the girly. I think she was really good once we got to the end of her saga. Like, once we're in like the Infinity stuff, Infinity Wars and Endgame, I thought she was great in that. But in terms of like the early Iron Man stuff and whatever, like, I did not pay that much attention to her, to be honest. She wasn't like giving me really anything. Scarlett Johansson is an interesting actress. Like, she and like Natalie Portman, like, those are actresses who like they'll give you a good performance if they want to, but if they don't want to, like
Yeah.
they're just not going to. So
Yeah.
it's very like it's difficult, but I really enjoyed the fact that like they made me care about characters who I really didn't care about
Hmm.
initially. Like I really loved Elena, and I Bucky wasn't really like doing too much in this, but like the little bit that he did, I did enjoy that. I thought Sebastian Stan, one, he's a great actor, and the fact that he chooses to keep doing these movies
Hmm.
just shows me that he at least cares about it. So like, I'm here for that. I didn't even know who John Walker was. Is that his name?
Yeah. They was the Captain America they got in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Yeah.
Knew nothing about that guy,
Hmm.
but I still thought Wyatt Russell did a good job.
Hmm.
And Red Guardian, David Harbour, I found his character like a little bit annoying, honestly, in the Black Widow movies. And I thought he was really good here. I love the dynamic that him and Florence have. Like, I like when they do this kind of like ramshackle team. Like, let's just get like random people together and make it work and see like how these guys work together. It's very like Guardians of the Galaxy in that way. And I enjoy that's to me one of Marvel's like high bright spots is the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff. So like I really enjoyed that. And I loved that they were talking about like mental health, depression, grief, like finding your purpose and identity. That was a huge one that I feel like through the exploration of the mental health, we got to that where it's just like, no, like you actually have like a reason to be here. Like you have these skills, and unfortunately, you were and talking about Elena specifically, like she was taken as a child and became like a child assassin. The stuff that they do to the women in the red room is awful, and she has these skills, and she doesn't really. She's like numb to everything because of what she's gone through.
Yeah.
But to be able to repurpose that and rework it to a way where it's like, no, actually, I can have a positive effect on what's going on in the world and not just be like passive about it. I thought it was great. And they did the same thing sort of with Sentry too, where it's like, no, you like there's something there where you can actually be beneficial. Like you don't have to, go down the road where he was going, where it did seem like after Valentina, he was supposed to be like another villain, but I didn't even really buy the villain part. I was just
Yeah.
like, nah, this is just a person who was struggling.
Yeah.
And I feel like they did a good job, and especially Lewis Pullman. I think Lewis and Florence were my favorite parts of the movie,
Hmm.
but I definitely feel like Lewis, his performance as Bob, before we get to see the other side of him, I thought he did a really good job at just like seeming like a person who is like in crisis, trying to figure things out, doesn't really understand like what powers he has, like how that's affecting people. Like he's just trying to like help. And so by the time that we got to this entry part, I wasn't even like, oh, he's a bad guy. I was just like, well, okay, let's let's figure out where this is coming from.
Mm,
Like let's give him a chance. Let's give him
yeah.
a chance to talk. So
And I like the fact that, Sebastian Stan is there. And he's also a character who we saw that kind of study, a study in grief and study in loss in his appearances. Particularly, like I said, you didn't watch Falcon and Winter Soldier, I did. And this a lot. There were multiple scenes of him with a therapist talking about how to deal with what he's been through. He tries to mimic the same thing. We saw, um Chris Evans in his portrayal of Captain America having a notebook, of things to do. And, initially he's like, oh, if I write these down, or I killed this person. I killed this person, I remember. So if I help them, that should, solve the grief or whatever issues I'm dealing with. And I like how he mentions that he basically says, I've been where you are, And I
mm,
like that he's kind of the, like a guiding figure, like you see, especially at the end, where I guess we've seen Yelena take on almost a leadership role, even though Wyatt and Red Guardian both think they're the leader. In a
mm-hmm.
way, it's more so actually her and Bucky's telling her, "Oh, do this, this," as she's kind of struggling and stumbling. Using him as saying like, as a mentor, like I've been through what you've been through. Let me help you get out of that. And I love that. We have John Walker. Once again as being a good guy, but not being a good guy. That facade, that armor of, oh, I'm Captain America. I'm the soldier. I've done all this, but my prior actions of killing an innocent. My loss of my friend drove me on a dangerous path, and then I took that anger out on my wife and my kids. That kind of thing. So he puts on the armor of like, oh, I'm a good person front facing, but deep down he's still, guarding and dealing with stuff. I mean, the only character we really didn't dig into was Ghost, the
Yeah.
girl who shifts you stuff, and that's more or less due to how she was portrayed in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Mm,
Honestly, so it's not really her fault. I wish we could have spent more time with her understanding and still trying to process that experience of not being seeing her father die in front of her face in front of an explosion, and those years of not being able to touch or interact with people because she's kind of intangible, um in
mm.
a way. I wish we got to see her deal with that. Like those are connections that she's lost from a lot of people. Um, and I like the fact that he kind of decided to kill Taskmaster like in the first 10 minutes, because I think they understood that uh they kind of did fuck up with the Black Widow movie. They did give us Yelena, they did give us Red Guardian, but that movie should have been done so much further. And that Taskmaster I view very much like the um the first version of Deadpool that we got in Wolverine Origins. Like it was a bad take on that
Mm.
character. So hopefully down the line with this multiversal stuff, that there's still glimpses in it because of the end credit scene. Hopefully that they course correct and actually get an accurate version of Taskmaster showing up later on down the road.
Yeah, that's it was interesting because Taskmaster is like featured in the promo. So it's just like, y'all know that y'all killed her off like in like
Yeah.
the first few minutes of this movie. So that's a little awkward. But I do think, and so honestly, I do really like this movie, but I think one of the issues that maybe I think will only really be cured by Fantastic Four is the fact that now you have these movies that are trying to like clean up and like retcon like a lot of the issues from the other movies. So like these movies are in some of their purpose is actually to just like reset things.
Hmm.
And so that's a little bit annoying if you think about it too much, just because it's like, one, it's like you have to remember stuff from movies that came out years ago and like who's going to do that. But two, it's like, okay, well, we've made so many mistakes. We kind of just need this movie to like fix that. I didn't watch Brave New World, so I don't know if they also did that in that movie. I'm not really sure what they did that in that movie. So I don't know if they were retconning stuff. I have no idea.
Hmm.
But there are a lot of things that like were screwed up that now other movies have to kind of fix, which is a little bit annoying. That is just like their job to kind of make some of these things right. Not
Yeah.
everything was a mess, but like some of the things were a mess. So it's just
Hmm.
like now they got to figure that out. So that's a little bit annoying. But other than that, like I'm trying to think, do I have any like real criticisms of this movie? I mean, I wasn't like a huge fan of Julia Louis Dreyfus, only because it just kind of felt like she was doing her character from Veep. Like she was
Mm,
just like, so I'm gonna do the same thing here. And it's like, okay, well, cool. Listen, it was funny. Like I think Julia is great in that role as Selena Meyer, and I think that it, in the context of this character and what's happening, it kind of does make sense that she would be doing like a version of that in this. I don't like how they tried to like give her some backstory about like why she is the way she is. They kind of threw that in there, and I was like, I still don't care.
yeah, yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
So I was just like, all right, whatever. And I think the turn of like I think her trying to get Bob to like do what she wanted, like her whole plan didn't really make any sense. She was just kind of winging it. So don't know about that. But other than that, I did really like it. I actually like because I don't they don't explicitly say what Bob's mental issues are. I think that's in the comics, or I guess for the comic book readers and lovers, they know what his situation is.
Mm.
I found out because I had to look it up. But I did like how they depicted that. Is it bipolar or multiple personality disorder? I'm not really
It's
sure what it is,
you can
but
you can't really tell. All they
yeah.
know is like it's they have sometimes describe it as two halves of the same whole between
Mm.
Sentry or Bob and the Void. That's how they describe it. They don't really go
Okay.
beyond surface level a lot with it. So
Okay,
yeah.
so not explicit with it. But I
Yeah.
did like how they were able to show how that kind of manifests itself.
Mhm.
And also that like in order for him in order for all of them really to kind of get to a point where they're able to do this job as being, the new Earth's mightiest heroes is they had to really go through that trauma and go through their pain in
Mhm.
order to, we see Yelena's stuff, which is dark and like whoa, and then we see Bob's stuff. We don't see everyone else's stuff, but
Yeah.
like we see their stuff, and the fact that they're able to like overcome this because they didn't just like ignore these problems. They were able to really they literally had to go through them.
Yeah.
And I thought that that was like a really good, it's just like a good movie just like for anyone to watch. Like we're just like, hey, I'm not doing well right now, like I think that that's a good movie to like watch just to see like, there's still hope at the end of the tunnel and you can kind of get through these things. It's not easy, but it's still possible. And that all of it actually does help you do what you were meant to do. Like it's not all for nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when Marvel does stuff like that's when they're at their peak. Like this being a study in, uh, grief and loss and anxiety and all that stuff. Of course, you have the original Captain America movies, which are almost like spy thrillers, like when they like adapt and like tell a story within a story, almost kind of way. That's when Marvel is at their strength. When they started pumping out movies to pump out movies, they kind of lost that you know storytelling element. Had to see their backtrack. I think this movie and its reshoots and rewrites were better pulled off than I think Captain America Brave New
Mm,
World.
hmm.
It's Brave New World seemed like it was really rushed to get to figure out how we're gonna like thread this path. At least and I think these are both going on at the same time, but because Marvel has a habit of announcing their release dates super early, like you can really tell, visual wise that they rush through Captain America Brave New World. This one they took their time because I think they were also using a lot more physical effects. They purposely said we're gonna reset this thing, make everything physical, and so they really grounded it and took their time to rework it. And then, like you said, I do wish like the only real criticism of the movie is the fact that we see Bob touch Elena, we get her not Elena, Valentina, and we get her flashback, and there's no real payoff for it. Like
Right.
we see her dad get killed, and like we just all right, we're not gonna go beyond that, and then I really wish they had shown like more of John Walker, him dealing with his stuff from John's point of view. We like and that's part of the reason why I say a lot of the scenes that this is more Yelena's movie because she's doing a lot of the heavy emotional leading of this movie, both visual storytelling wise and leadership wise in this picture.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's the thing with like the team up stuff is that you don't get enough time with everyone.
Hmm.
And you don't get to see everyone's stuff,
Hmm.
which yeah, and I definitely felt that especially with Ghost when I was just like, I like the actress. Like I wish we kind of saw more of her
Hmm.
her development, but that wasn't really front and center. So yeah, and I guess in terms of any team up movie, you would have to pick someone to focus on that we can kind of go through the movie with.
Hmm.
And it makes sense that it's Florence, like it does. Like I think that yeah, and just in terms of like everything, like performance, charisma, like whatever, like yes, like it makes sense that Florence would leave the movie, and I think she did a fantastic job at that. Um, but oh, crap, what was I gonna say? But yeah, and in terms of like how it was shot and the effects and stuff, and the stunts and all that, I thought that stuff was really good. This seems like a really tight script, and I know that
Yeah.
they had to stop before or during the strikes, and then they rewrote a lot of stuff during that time.
Hmm.
And like you said, the rewrites and stuff that worked a lot better than some of these other projects that they did the same thing and it didn't come
Hmm.
off as well. But it just seemed like there was a story that needed to be that was told. Like it was concise,
Hmm.
it was structured, and it was just like, okay, this is what we're doing. And that's why it was good. Like it's so I guess because it wasn't like necessarily primarily a vehicle to set up other movies,
Hmm.
it actually worked well as a movie. And I and maybe like it's so sad that it took Marvel all this time to figure that piece out.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie is good because it was a concise story about these people. Like we have the setup stuff for Fantastic Four, but like it's fine because like I think I said this last week. That's a movie that already came out. Like I mean, sorry, that's a movie that's coming out.
Hmm.
Like we've seen the trailers. It's already been shot. It's coming out in July.
Yeah.
Like it's not like they did the whole thing at the Comic-Con where they like listed a bunch of new projects and it's like, okay, well, this has to link up with that. Or I remember there's just in other Marvel movies where they'll have post-credit scenes. Especially I remember one in the Multiverse of Madness with the Doctor Strange where Charlize Theron just popped up out of nowhere and they just
They don't
popped
pay off
in
for it. Yeah.
that post credit scene and I was like, okay, what does this mean? Like I don't even know who you are. Like this is so confusing and weird. So I'm grateful that they're learning their lessons. They made mistakes. It's fine. I mean, a lot of money went to waste making these mistakes, but listen,
Yeah.
we worked through it.
Yeah.
Hopefully they don't mess up. I don't know. I heard some stuff about Ironheart, so
Yeah.
I'm just gonna pretend like that's not happening right now, and I'm just gonna focus on what's happening in front of me. Um, and yeah, and that's why I think it worked. It was just like a good, solid movie,
Yeah.
good action, great performances. I'm like I said, I'm interested in the Marvel Cinematic Universe again.
Yeah.
I checked out
Yeah.
a while ago.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I still watch certain projects here and there, but like, I wasn't trying to follow the timeline.
Yeah.
Like, I really didn't care at that point. And this movie made me want to lock back in, and I feel like that is the receipts or the show of like a successful movie venture. It's like, okay, I'm reinvesting in what you guys have to do. Please just don't mess it up
Yeah,
again.
it became at one point. This is why people were talking about superhero fatigue for a while because, especially from Marvel, because it came to a point where like, oh, in 1 month I'm seeing like four Marvel movies. They were all like trying to get all of them coming out summer blockbusters. So you like seeing 2 to 3 summer movies almost every like quarter. Which is like, come on, that's a really ridiculous cycle. But yeah, it seems like they course correct. I think with this movie they kind of did figure out what to do, what not to do. And like you said, making end credits for movies that are never going to come out, like you said with Doctor Strange. At least this end credit scene kind of ties to, Fantastic Four in a way. It's a movie that is coming out. Not a movie that's planned to be released down the road. So yeah, it's a good good, course recovery from Marvel. I really enjoyed myself with this movie. So, yeah.
Yeah, me too.
So on to some box office news and information, money tracking kind of thing. So to kick off the top 10 of the past weekend, number 10, of course, was the Amateur in its sixth week, made 600 900,000, in a 6 weeks, almost 40 million total domestic. Um, it's almost at the end of its theatrical run and it still maintained the top 7 spot, even though it didn't make the hall. I think 20th Century was hoping it would bring in. Followed by them at number 9 is Until Dawn, 800 thousand in its fourth week, 20,000 total. Yeah, it's the end of it. I think, probably by, in its sixth week, they're probably going to officially pull it from theatrical run, or potentially, most likely going to drop out the top 10. Um, Number 9, Clown in the Cornfield, second week. Um, Not really heard about much. Only made about 10 million. I mean, not 10 million, 1 million domestically, over 6 million in total. Um, it's almost like a difference of almost 60% from week 1 to week 2. So it was a massive drop off. Number 7 is Friendship in its second week, making $1 million, almost a 200% increase from week 1. Um, that means it's only made about 2 million domestically total. It's an A24 comedy, starring Tim Robinson, Paul Rudd. Um, it's slowly expanding into theaters. I know it was a limited engagement this first week, and now it's week 2. It's hit 60 theaters, with going wider, within the following weekend. Number 6 is Hurry Up Tomorrow, 33 million in its opening, um, starring Jenna Ortega. Um, Still kind of conflicted because it's the weekend's musical horror thriller, and people are still trying to figure out if they like music in the not music, but the weekend in this space, considering his failure of a show. But yeah, so hopefully we'll see how that goes. The Accountant 2 is as it is fourth week with 5 million the past weekend, almost making 60 million in total. It's doing decent numbers. No one was really expecting it to like blow anybody out the water. It's gonna be a simple by the numbers action movie with Ben Affleck and John Burhall. Nothing, you know, I haven't not really eye opening with it. Number 4, Minecraft movie, 7 week near the end of its box office run, and made almost 6 million its last week, which is crazy. So far it's made about 400 million domestically, and uh almost it's about to hit it hit almost hit that billion mark, but it made 930 million. It's a blip drop, only dropped about 20% from week 6 to week 7. But yeah, with it now expanding into on demand, pay for video on demand, it's probably going to hit that 1 billion mark milestone once those statistics come in from people who've rented it to watch at home. Sinners, of course, is number 3 in its fifth week, 14 million, 50 million total, 240 million domestic, almost 3 million global. Um, it's made 5 times opening weekend so far. To the naysayers beginning not understanding how this movie could be a success. It being original IP, and Hollywood has somehow talked themselves into thinking that nobody wants original movies anymore, and they were being really negative about it. To see it still be up there, what success it has is truly remarkable. It was always going to have the success if you actually, enjoyed the movie. So still shocked as to how Variety and other outlets were saying this was an anomaly. Of course, the movie we talked about earlier, Thunderbolts, third week, about 16 million domestically, 155 million in total, about a 50% drop off. It's hit already in its third week, almost at 3 million mark. Um, so yeah, it's kind of tracking similarly to what they say the Eternals made domestically and Captain America: Brave New Worlds were released. We mentioned that earlier. The issues Brave New World had was the multiple rewrites and story changes that weren't really cohesive, and you could tell that it wasn't one cohesive story. Hopefully Thunderbolts, like we said, will dissuade that with its story is very streamlined, and hopefully it will continue to bring in numbers. Of course, number 1 with its opening, Final Destination Bloodlines. Wasn't really a big fan of the Financial Destination franchise. I see the appeal. I don't drive behind log trucks. I guess that's a millennial thing from this movie. I can kind of understand it. It made almost 50 million opening this weekend and about 102 million in its global debut. Um, so it's like the sixth in the franchise, I'm guessing. It's number six. Even beating Scream's opening, for a for horror franchise. It's got like almost 93% across almost every, you know, rating system. Yeah, expected but unexpected. I don't think people understood. I didn't understand how much people loved this franchise, but they do. Even if you look on streaming platforms, like particularly on HBO Max, it's all three of the all the whole series is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in like the top 10 of most watched. So yeah, I'm surprised. Didn't expect. I didn't think people were really craving for a franchise like this, but I guess people still are.
Okay, so let's turn to Cannes. The Cannes Film Festival is currently underway in the south of France. And the major news, well, there's a lot coming out because a lot of big movies that we will be focusing on, definitely in the latter half of this year, are starting to roll out. But Robert De Niro was given, I think, a Lifetime Achievement Award, something of that sort. It
Yeah.
was like a very prestigious award he was given at the Cannes Film Festival. Um, and he called Donald Trump America's Philistine president. Now, Robert De Niro has never been shy about expressing his opinions on this particular president. Some of you might remember him standing outside of the courthouse yelling at someone, just like an old man screaming. But like it was during Trump's case of like it was the financial case. It wasn't the sexual harassment case.
Mhm.
Just in case you forgot that this man is a criminal. There's that. But Robert De Niro in his speech said, art is the truth. Art embraces diversity. And that's why art is a threat to the autocrats and the fascists of the world. America's Philistine president has had himself appointed head of one of America's premier cultural institutions. He has cut funding and support to the arts, humanities, and education. And now he announced a 100% tariff on films made outside of the US. You can't put a price on connectivity. And yes, like it's really I really wonder like how older actors, like like more established actors who have, seen people come and go and are now dealing with Trump, how they feel about what he's doing, particularly to the film industry. It must really feel terrible because like
Yeah.
he doesn't know anything about it, obviously, but he again, he doesn't know a lot about a lot, but yet he chooses to insert himself and to do things that are completely unnecessary, so and hurtful
Mm.
and damaging. So it's I'm really glad that Robert De Niro is speaking about this. I feel like that is what actors should be doing. This is their industry, so like it would make sense for them to be speaking about this. um but also like I wonder like what the industry overall is going to do about these changes. Like are they going to fight back? I think some of them are, or they're trying to, but I'm not really sure what their response to this is. I have to look into that a little bit more, but I feel like a lot of actors should be kind of taking broader stances on these issues, not only because it affects their industry, but also because it just affects everyone.
Mm.
There was a Palestinian filmmaker who actually was killed in Gaza by the IDF. And they had a project, she had a project coming out at Cannes called, I think it was like A Day in Gaza. I think that's what the film is called. Um, and I don't know if anyone has spoken about that, but it is like it just brings into sharp focus that like it really doesn't matter if you are a filmmaker, if you just won an Oscar, like it just like if you are a Palestinian person, like your life is literally in danger every single day, and this is an issue that everyone has to care about. And I applaud Robert De Niro for speaking up about Trump using this platform to talk about this. I just want more of it to happen from more high profile people
Yeah.
like who aren't afraid, who aren't gonna like be like, oh, I don't want to say this or that because of my career or whatever, but like to just actually just talk about these issues because I feel like maybe more people, I feel like people are listening and people are aware. I just
Mm.
feel like maybe it'll get to these people who are making the crazy decisions that this is not what is needed. This is not what we want. We want change. We want people to be safe. We want artists to be protected. Like these are these are very basic things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
And yeah, this is probably going to be a very episode heavy on Hollywood's reaction to what he's doing. But no, like the what Robert De Niro is also referring to is the Kennedy Center. Trump
yeah.
kind of put himself in charge of Kennedy Center, which is one of the leading American cultural institutions. You know, and also his issues with trying to pull funding from PBS and public TV. But I know I know the Kennedy Center is supposed to be hosting a performance of Les Miserables, a story about the French Revolution, and a lot of the performers were saying they're not going to show up if they have to be there or if Key shows up. And the
Mm-hmm.
person who was trying, the program organizer was saying, "Oh, anybody who decides not to show up shouldn't be, involved in theater anymore." And I'm like, do y'all not know the point of Les Miserables at all? Like, y'all just think it's a play with French speaking? Like, it's the French Revolution. Like, I don't know how you didn't think that, actors who are attached to the arts, especially actors who are performers who are involved in this project, wouldn't react that way. So I don't know what they were speaking in. Not like De Niro isn't the only person who spoke out against him at Cannes so far. um uh
I'm sure.
Pedro Pascal, who is now known as, I guess, America's dad, based on all his
He's
projects.
America's sweetheart. Yes, he's wonderful.
Yeah,
We love
so
him.
he spoke out in the press conference where he's involved in at Ari Aster's Eddington, and he's spoke out about the recent deportations from the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so he said for him particularly, it's very scary for an actor who participated in the movie to speak out about this, because the movie's also about a standoff between a small town sheriff and mayor, as pitting neighbor against neighbor, kind of like what's happening where some neighbors are weaponizing ICE to get their other neighbors out.
Mm.
He says himself he wants people to be protected and safe. He wants to live on the right side of history. He's an immigrant. His parents are refugees from Chile. They fled a dictatorship, and he said he was privileged enough to grow up in the U.S. after seeking asylum in Denmark. He went on to say if it weren't for that, he doesn't know what would happen to his family. And he stands by those protections, which me, son of immigrants, I vibe with that. I understand that 100% correctly, and I also think it's kind of odd with Chilean, American, by way of Chile, saying these things. If you look at a lot of Trump's cabinet, it's a lot of people who are first and second generation. They're really close to immigrants. I don't know how they can vibe with, casting aside people who are just like them. But you know, they asked the cast, Joaquin Phoenix, Emma Stone, Austin Butler, if they feared returning home after making a film deeply political. And Pedro just said, "Fear's the way they win," which is, like, so, you know, I don't know, antithetical to him as a person, because I think he's been very outspoken about these issues, and also he's backed up his sister, who transitioned into womanhood, and he's spoken out about that, walked with her on the red carpet, against, people saying what they did is wrong. But Pedro has always been, he's one of the actors of this era who's very front facing with his convictions. Like, you always know where he believes and where he stands with, because he's always going to tell you. So yeah.
And that's what I mean in terms of like having very high profile people talk about these issues because it is, to me, it's very meaningful that you have someone like Pedro Pascal who like him, like he said, is an immigrant, has a trans sister, like who went to the Thunderbolts premiere in what is it, Protect the Doll shirt, which is a like organization that supports trans people. Right after the UK had sent down a ridiculous judgment about how man is man and a woman is a woman, J.K. Rowling, you're gonna rot. Like it's just it's I really respect him for doing that, mainly because like Pedro Pascal is everywhere. He's in literally every single movie. He's doing this movie. He has the Materialist with Celine Song coming out literally next
Hmm.
month. Fantastic Four the month after that. Like he's still starring in The Last of Us. Like he is literally everywhere. Everyone loves him. And I feel like in a position where like you are at the top of your game, everyone is like you're like loves you, you're well respected. It could be a place where you could be comfortable and say, you know what, like I kind of got everything that I want out of this. I'm not going to take a risk. I'm not going to speak about these controversial issues, especially with Trump and his who knows what his administration is going to do next. Like the fact that he would like use his platform is like, no, I'm going to speak out about these issues because like it's important. Like the thing is that like I was also a person who wasn't in a powerful position at one point, so I
Hmm.
understand like what people are going through, like how people feel, and I just really applaud him for that, like really applaud him for that. And I really hope that a lot of other actors kind of just take their cues from that, because there are a lot of actors who don't talk about these things at all.
Yeah.
Very famous, very talented, but don't speak about these issues. So I'm really glad that he's using his platform. Robert De Niro is using his platform. Like we need a lot more of that, especially in Hollywood, because sometimes, and you said before, which is I think is a good point, is like a lot of these outlets aren't don't always report things in the let's just say the uh correct way. Is that a way to say it?
Yeah. Yellow journalism, you know.
There's a yeah, there's a slant.
Hmm.
There's a slant to some of these publications. And we've definitely seen that with Sinners and like other things, the Israel and Gaza stuff. Like they did not do a good job reporting on that stuff at all. So like it's good to have these actors who are just like pushing these very to me common sense, but if you want to call it progressive, whatever policies and ideas to like just like hey like let's try to make things better for everyone and like safeguard them from the madness that is going on in the White House right now.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Hmm.
So, but quickly just to wrap up the can stuff, some movies to look out for. Eddington, that's Ari Aster's new film. I think Highest to Lowest, which is Spike Lee's new film with Denzel Washington. I think that premiered today. Um, Alpha, which is a I can't pronounce her last name. I think she did Titan, but I could
Hmm.
be wrong. She might
Hmm.
have done. Is that what she did?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But starring Emma Mackey from Sex Education, that is getting a lot of buzz right now. So I'm looking out for that. The History of Sound with Paul Mescal and Josh O'Connor, that is coming out later this week. The Mastermind with Josh O'Connor and Kelly Reichardt, that's coming out at the end of the week. So those are like the things that I'm kind of looking out for just to see how they're responded to, even though I don't really care about the standing ovations because they don't really mean much to me personally.
Hmm.
But these are movies that I am keeping my eye on for when they get a worldwide release.
Hmm.
So yeah, it seems like there's some good
Yeah.
stuff coming out this year.
Yeah. I'm probably out of cans. I think I'm probably looking forward to the most, or the most curious about. Because a lot of these directors at Cannes right now are established. You got Wes Anderson, you got Richard Linklater, of course, we got
Yes, yeah.
Ari Aster. I'm looking forward to Chronology of Water, which is Kristen
Yes,
Stewart's
Kristen
film,
Stewart's new,
and it's
yeah.
her debut, like her first like directorial picture, and then she's showing it off at Cannes, and knowing the kind of projects that Kirsten partakes in. I'm interested in how it comes off. Like the reception right now so far is, critics loved it. Like it's very distinct in its style. Of course, standing owes me nothing, but it got like a 6 minute standing o, which I think so far has been the average for cans anyway. So you kind of can't, like I said, gauge it off the standing O's.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I think the report the critics so far, the reviews so far of it at Kansas, like it's been really good. So I'm looking forward to seeing that when it hits theaters, personally.
Yeah, that sounds yeah, I'm excited about that. And also Die My Love with Robert Pattinson and
Yeah.
Jennifer Lawrence. I'm excited to see that one too.
Yeah. So moving on to a bit of continuing the same topic, with issues Hollywood and the current presidency, but also onto a bit of union news. So this I think is a big win. FX workers for who under Marvel, Disney, and of course Avatar, got a new union contract ratified, which also includes minimum overtime pay, minimum rates, healthcare, and pensions contributions. The VFX work as part of IOSC, which kind of a lot of below the line crew, is their union. They detailed the details of their collective bargaining agreement, and that's also why and also the reason as to why they fought to unionize actually in 2023, or not just unionize, but also join an established union, because a lot of film departments aren't actually a part of a union. So Iwasi is kind of the catch-all almost for everybody, in a way, especially if you're below the line, like I said. So they they're hoping this continues workers in other craft fields to unionize professionally across North America and join this cause down the road. Um, so they've kind of extended their contract with Disney and Marvel for 4 years, and Avatar continues for three. So that might roll with more Avatar projects coming on. This thing also includes another topic we might talk about later, but AI protections are covered in this as well, which in talking about Disney and Marvel, the backlash it received from Secret Invasion, not just story wise, but visually. A lot of the visual effects were not up to par. um you know what's her name, Amelia Clark had like an arm that was 10 sizes too small for like a body, and weird muscular proportions. And of course, the issue of them using AI for the intro and credit sequences was a real talking point. So of course, Marvel, in an effort to avoid those issues once again, has decided to acquiesce to the FX Union's wins. And this might also see, knowing these protections, they're getting overtime pay and basic minimums, means a lot of these FX rushes we saw in the past with Marvel movies, when they're pumping out movies every other month, we won't see those issues happen again. So I'm really happy for anybody involved in FX Union, because especially considering for a long time in Hollywood, before Disney, Marvel, they have a specific FX companies they go out to. For a lot of times in Hollywood, it was the cheapest bid wins, and a lot of times you see these movies or pictures win best visual effects. They'd win an Oscar or an Emmy, and then a year or two later they're closed because yes, we won, but in order to continue to get work, we have to sell ourselves with lower and lower bids. So hopefully this agreement will end that happening for all these visual effects companies.
Yeah, that's great. I'm really glad that people like made us think about that and really talked about it too.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. Um, okay, so our next story. The WGA demands immediate reinstatement of the US Copyright Office head after Trump's unlawful firing. So Shira Perlmutter was fired by the Trump administration after releasing a critical AI report saying that the technology was premature for government use. So the Trump administration fired her.
Mhm.
She's okay, the US Copyright um office head. And that the fact that like the report was very critical of the AI in government agencies um really upset whoever was in the Trump administration. I, I'm guessing it's the people who are funding whatever they're doing. I'm
Mhm.
guessing it's them. But the WGA East called her firing unlawful and agreed with her report titled Copyright and Artificial Intelligence Part 3 Generative AI Training, and its assessment that AI companies that train their systems through unauthorized access to copyrighted materials goes beyond established fair use boundaries and could cause harm to copyright owners.
Mhm.
Which exactly, like we have been screaming about this since AI really became a big thing, like it became a threat to so many different parts of all of, not even Hollywood, but just everything anyone does. Like we really have to take this seriously. And I feel like there were people trying to make grounds and actually like figuring out how to regulate this stuff, and the fact that the Trump administration, just because, I think
Hmm.
it's they don't have like a goal other than just to ruin people's lives. That's just how I feel. Like it just feels like they're just doing this because I don't know, I guess it doesn't fill their pockets, so they don't care, which tracks with what they're doing. But I really do hate this whole like firing just random people. Like you can't, because and again, it's like firing without even thinking about like, okay, how are we gonna replace? How do we deal with any of these agents? Like they don't care. They're just
Yeah.
firing people. No plan. So it's just
Zero.
like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
Yeah. It's worse, like you mentioned, firing without a plan because like they fired her 24 hours and this document is not like somebody's opinion. It's 108-page research document, and you think, and it's talking about like this vast tropes of copyrighted work. We've seen people copyright Nintendo's properties, and Nintendo was very serious about their copyright stuff. You've seen people do guilty stuff on like social media, which is thing. So I think Hollywood, I think this is probably going to become a bigger deal with Hollywood in general because a lot of these studios don't want people copying their ideas for IPs and stuff. And some of these presidents of these companies are, millionaires back millionaires, or some of his political donors. But I also think the issue of the fact that they said AI, of course, the big three in Trump's, supporters were our tech companies: Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, and Bezos,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
Palantir, which is Peter Thiel, and they signed a contract with Palantir and Peter Thiel to make an immigrant OS, which is tracking people's data and stuff like that. So they're going to be really hard pressed to anything concerning AI. But I do think the counter to that will be Hollywood because they are also millionaires as well, and they and tech people use Hollywood tactics to promote their work and kind of circumvent, traditional spaces. So it's going to be a hard battle. I think it'll change. You know, Firing people without understanding what's going on, because like I said, it's 24 hours after the report was released. Like I remember, like they hot fire like half the nuclear regulatory people, and they're like,
Mm.
"Oh, wait, that's important," and they
Right.
had to
It's
hire them
like,
back. So it's this pattern of firing people and not understand the consequences of that action. Because at this point now, it becomes an IP free for all. So now these tech companies that have IPs, anybody can copy their shit now, release it on their own. Are they gonna like throw a temper tantrum now because now you're with this firing? That means the IPs don't matter. You know,
mm-hmm.
owning the copyrighted work to this idea or that don't matter. I could just copy straight up and make it my own, and you can't do shit about it. So I think there will be. I don't think she'll be rehired, but I do think there'll be a course correction on the reaction to this information, though. Which you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mess. Okay,
mess, mess, mess,
so
mess.
let's talk about what we've been watching this week.
So in honor of Thunderbolts, I rewatched Captain America: Winter Soldier, which I do still think is the peak of Marvel at its best with its storytelling. Like I think that's one of the few Marvel movies that might stand the test of time,
Mm,
just for like political intrigue. All like everything about that movie is, even if it wasn't a superhero movie, it's still perfect.
mm,
And then I also watched the first two episodes of Michelle Williams' new show, Dying for Sex, which is about a woman who gets stage 4 terminal cancer, and kind of her unsatisfaction with her marriage, and she decides to, divorce him and go on a sexual discovery and journey, which has been it's a comedy genre. It's been entertaining to watch. Like I said before, I'm thankful, like happy that women now have the landscape now to tell these stories that they want to tell like this. Because years ago, this show wouldn't have been made. Even still, like up until, because it's based on a real life story of a woman named Molly Cochrane, who had the cancer, divorced her husband, and the story was covered in a podcast, covered in her book. She died in like 20 I think 2010. No, I mean 2000s, and they had pitched like this story already, and shot pilots for it, you know, to the industry, and they're like, "Oh, we don't know how to market it or how to promote it." But then post her death, post her book, post the success of the podcast story, we see, oh, the industry does know how to promote it. It's just that they weren't receptive to do it at that time. So I'm really thankful that women, even though she has passed, I'm thankful that women now have the opportunity to tell these kind of stories that they want to see it tell. So
I have been still watching my shows, working my way through Ted Lasso. The last episode of The Studio comes out Wednesday. So I'm excited to see that. I don't know if it's just a limited series or if it's going to be renewed for a second series. I'm not sure, but if it is, that'd be great because I love that show. It's great. And still watching The Last of Us and crying. But I sort of watched Psycho. I watched other people react to the movie, so sort of watched, not really, but kind of. And because I watched Bates Motel, I watched that show, I think, throughout to the conclusion. I didn't watch it when Rihanna entered the situation. I stopped there because I think that's where it catches up with the movie. But I was like, I loved Bates Motel when it came out. That was my show. So kind of watching Psycho. But the people who were reacting to were like huge fans of it. So I got a lot of cool like inside information about like why they hired the main actor. I think his name is Anthony. I forgot his last name. But that they like Hitchcock intentionally hired like a homosexual actor to portray the role because he's kind of what's the right term? Is it drag? No, it's not drag. Cosplaying as his mom. What's the term? I'm not sure the term. I'm not sure of the term. Excuse me for my insensitivity. I'm not trying to be insensitive. I just can't think about what the term is right now. It's not coming in my brain at the moment. But because he's also playing the role of his mom, they intentionally hired a gay actor for that. With that, and I don't think he was out at all because it was like the 50s. But I thought that was cool that like he had a prominent role and he was able to like do both things. It's shot beautifully. Like that's Hitchcock knows how to shoot a movie. Like it looks fantastic. But yeah, so that was fun. Will I actually watch the movie now? I don't know.
You should watch it.
I should.
It's like I know you have a thing with not watching older Hollywood, but it's one of those movies that stand the test of time. It's a reason why it's revered the way it is. Yeah, I think you'd enjoy it.
I will. I just really have to be in the mindset to do it. That's all it is. It's just like sit down and really hunker down and like focus, and then I'll be able to do it. But yeah. All right. So that is it from us this week. We hope that you're all doing well, taking care of yourselves. Make sure to check out all of our social media, support us if you can, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Goodbye.
Au revoir.